It is August 3rd. It's Monday. It's the first day of the Kion Cold Thermo Challenge. And thank you for everybody tuning in. we're here live doing a Q&A with cold training expert Jesse Coomer. My name is Mike. Jesse, welcome.
Thank you.
So we've asked you guys to post your questions, cold thermo, cold training, cold exposure questions to Instagram. We also had a survey go out, so we've collected those questions for Jesse to answer. We'll tackle the most common questions, and then we'll hit up some live questions as well. But first, let's just get to know you a little bit, Jesse. Yeah, give me what do you do?
I am in the Midwest, and I'm by day I am I'm not a mild-mannered anything. I'm a professor of English, and I'm pretty just this way all the time, everywhere I go. But I'm a professor of English at Vincennes University, and I am a recovering, ruminator, worrier, just absolutely, I used to find all the wrong ways to solve the daily problems of modernity, right? So we have an enormous amount of anxiety, and we oftentimes have avenues that we, whether it's, drugs and alcohol, or going to a sugar coma, or, sitting on the couch all day, or having all kinds of maladaptive behaviors. I had all of those. I was just like, okay, give me the all-you-can-eat buffet of the worst things you can do. But I had a lot of anxiety my whole life, and it's kind of a weird thing because I'm an extrovert by nature, but I'm also, I also had an enormous amount of anxiety, was always just ruminating. I'm sure we a lot of us can understand, I couldn't turn my brain off, that kind of thing. And so I started looking for modalities to kind of help that. And so I originally got into, fitness and things like that. And one day I was scrolling through the internet, and I saw this this article it said, learn to influence your immune system voluntarily. And I said, that's dumb. And of course I clicked on it because that's what we do, right? No one's looking. I can look at this article, and it had this crazy Dutch man by the name of Wim Hof there, and he was talking about breathing exercises and cold exposure, both of which I had no idea were things, right. Okay, yeah, I know that I breathe, and I know that cold sucks, but that's all I knew about those things. Well, so what happened was, rather than just passing judgment, which is what I intended to do, I started looking more into this, and I got more interested, and I started practicing the Wim Hof Method, which is there's a breathing technique that he does, and there's cold exposure. And I just was enamored by this. It was just really a life-changing thing for me. And I noticed that a lot of things change. And one of those things specifically was an incredible alleviation of anxiety. And I didn't even know how much anxiety I was walking around with. Whenever you have just chronic anxiety, you don't even know it's there until it's gone. And we know how this is, if you've ever had some kind of a physical pain or something like that, and then you go to I don't know, they pop your back or whatever, and it's gone. You're like, oh my God, I was suffering. And so I was like that. And so so the cold and all these things were really great. Well, I tell you what though, when it comes to cold training, which is, the topic of the evening, I did not take to it very well. It really was a difficult thing for me. And I always tell the story about the very first time I did a cold shower. It was because I was trying to practice the Wim Hof Method, and I did the breathing, and I was like, yeah, man, all right, now I'm going to go take this cold shower. And it's not going to be it's nothing. And so I walked into the shower, and you guys don't tell anybody because this is kind of embarrassing, but I walked into the shower, and I said, Wim Hof, and I turned the knob with the cold on. Like somehow I was like drawing on the power of Wim Hof. Well, let me tell you, that didn't help at all. Because as soon as I felt the cold water on my skin, my skeleton exited my skin like on the cartoons, you know. And so it was a real struggle for me. And so I actually, for a little while, I was like, I'll just practice breath work. Well, it wasn't until I really decided to take this cold thing seriously that I really started experiencing benefits. And 8 months into this practice, I no longer needed to take, I had lifelong allergies. I took medications all year round. No longer did I need to take those. It was really incredible. And so from there, I trained with Wim Hof, became one of the first instructors ever to be trained by Wim Hof as an instructor. I was in that very first class. I've been able to work with this crazy guy. He's just really awesome dude. You know, we did, I actually in January, I got back from Poland. I did a couple expeditions with him, led some groups. And but the thing is, when it came to cold, Wim is awesome and he gives a lot of guidance, but there's a lot of extra questions, right? There's a lot of things where, you know, and I think it's the Western mindset that is like, okay, am I doing this right? And so I started to, after, you know, making a lot of mistakes on my own, and after doing some research, after training hundreds and hundreds of people to take ice baths, cold showers, things like that, working with athletes and working with just every walk of life, I was like, okay, what I'm going to do, because I started a YouTube channel in 2018. It was kind of just to answer questions about breath work, Wim Hof Method, cold exposure. And I started noticing I got a lot of questions about cold exposure. And I started noticing I got a lot of people saying that they'd had like bad things happen, like they stayed in the cold too long. I started reading about people who felt like, hey, if Wim Hof can climb a mountain in the snow, I can do it too. So I was like, okay, we need some kind of a practical guide. Yeah. So that's why I wrote my ebook, which, you know, little plug, I guess. You can go to my website to get that, midwesternmethod.com. But that's why I did that, is because I felt like there was a lot of questions that I had, yeah, and I wish that I had some guidance, yeah, that was a little bit more specific.
Well, that's how I found you. I took the online course in 2018. And awesome. I was a Western guy who had the questions, and I found the forums difficult to navigate. And pretty soon it's like, well, Jesse Coomer said this, and someone posted a link to one of your videos, like, well, check this guy out. And it came full circle in preparation for this. It's like you are the guy a lot of the Wim Hof students go to get the nuanced questions answered. And I'm just so stoked to have you in front of our you know, the Kion Nation here, because your unique approach, not only your wisdom and your experience with it, but the way you take a principles-based approach to it really soothes that, satisfies that part of my brain that is looking for, you know, maybe the myopic, you know, the answer to the myopic question, but really wants to know the bigger picture. So yeah, when Kelsey told us that you were going to do this, I jumped and did a little dance.
Awesome.
And I'm biased too. I think I mean I'm a super big fan. You've got nearly 200 videos on YouTube. I've watched a lot of them. I always learn something practical that I can apply to my practice, and I'm always smiling. Like, and very often I'm laughing out loud.
Good.
You've got this really beautiful call to action, which is to be kind, and it's a little cheesy, but I feel it, and I do feel a little bit inspired. And you know, watching your videos often makes my day. And I think if I were to write in your yearbook right now, I think you would be the guy most likely to grow up to be Santa Claus.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
You gotta look. He doesn't have it now. He had to eat chicken wings, so he had to cut it so he could eat wings. But you, when you got the beard, you're like Santa in his late 30s. You've got the twinkle in your eye. You're gregarious. You're jolly, and you've got the superpower for spreading good cheer, which is just such a gift to the rest of us. So I want to get into it because I want
let's get into it
to catch on your wisdom, but your good vibes.
Excellent. Let's do this.
All right. So a lot of people wrote in and they were concerned, like, is cold training, is it dangerous for me? I've got X, Y, and Z condition. Is it safe? Is it dangerous? So can you kind of just give us a high-level overview of maybe who should think twice before trying this?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, of course, just as a blanket statement, just like you're all expecting, check with your doctor first, right? And it really is one of those things where I do recommend that if you really want to know, hey, am I okay to do cold showers or cold training? Talk to your doctors. They should be somewhat familiar with it, right? Because athletes do it all the time. It's not like you're saying, Wim Hof Method or breath work or something that they may not be 100% familiar with. So if you go to your doctor and you say, hey, are there any conditions that I have that would prevent me from taking a cold shower or an ice bath, health-wise, that's always a good idea. Now, having said that, really doing cold training is returning to our natural state. So it's something that if done wisely, just not anybody can be able to do this. Yeah. Now, there are a couple of things that I'll just kind of say just as a primer. People who are epileptic or who have uncontrolled high blood pressure. It's not that if you take something for your blood pressure, it doesn't mean you can't do cold training. But if you have if you're not taking care of that, take care of it, right? Get that under control so that it's there. And the reason for that is specifically when we get into that cold, those of you guys who have already accepted the challenge and you've taken your cold challenge today, I was telling Mike just a second ago that I'm going to do mine after we talk. But you'll know that when you get into that cold and whenever it first hits you, right, just like I was talking about before, you have an adrenaline boost, right? So your blood pressure will kind of spike up a little bit for just a little bit. And it's something that if you are, prone to epileptic seizures, or if you're prone to, if you've really got some kind of out of control blood pressure issue, it may not be for you. Issues that sometimes people bring up that are not a problem. One is Raynaud's syndrome. So Raynaud's, and you might have seen someone with maybe your fingers turn white or maybe your ears. If you have a severe case, it's very rare to have such a severe case of Raynaud's that you should never get into a cold shower. Raynaud's is not something that typically is going to cause you any problems. In fact, one of my friends and fellow Wim Hof Method instructors, he trained in the cold, even despite him having actually really bad Raynaud's, and he no longer suffers from it. Now that's no guarantees, right? But it is something that it's not necessarily a problem. Issues like hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, sometimes people ask me about that. Those really aren't going to be obstacles. In fact, you may, if you have hypothyroidism, be easy on yourself. And that's going to be a theme of tonight. We're just going to talk about don't be a jerk to yourself, right? Be understanding and take it easy, because the whole goal of this is to get a lifelong practice, not, hey, I'm going to take an ice bath this week. That's really cool if you take an ice bath this week, but not if you shouldn't be. And that's all has to do with where you are right now. So that's kind of a good overview.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people oftentimes when they ask the question, they're thinking about the stock tank with 200 pounds of ice in it. Like, is that bad for me, or is that dangerous? And what we're really talking about is a cold stimulus that's slightly colder than what you're normally used to, and exposure for time slightly longer than you're normally used to. Not necessarily referring to that, that epic picture of sitting in and 200 pounds of ice in a stock tank. So yeah, just being logical about the fact that this is a hormetic stressor. You wouldn't ask like, is squatting 1,000 pounds bad for me? Like, it's hard to answer that question.
Right.
You know, it depends. So
it's exactly that. And really think about it like weightlifting. Like, and if you've read my ebook, that's always what I compare it to, is the stressor versus where you are in the spectrum. Because if, you know, I always talk about how, you know, if you go to the gym, you're always going to see that scrawny looking kid trying to get huge. And then he looks around at the bigger dudes and they're lifting these gigantic weights. So he picks up a gigantic weight. For some reason, I don't know why we try to impress other dudes at the gym, but for some reason, that's the thing. And so you see him, and he's hurting himself, man. I mean, he's hurting himself. Whereas if he just had a little humility and said, okay, 10-pound weights is good enough for me, and it's going to actually do what I want it to do, then he would prosper, benefit, and improve. And before you know it, you know, he'll be lifting the heavy weights too. Yeah. So it always is a case of where you are, and that's how to gauge what kind of stimulus you should get.
Well said. Yeah, I appreciate that. So let's move on, because just about every other question we got was some variation of, how do I do it right, or am I doing it right?
Yes.
Can you give us just spend a minute or two on just general principles of how to think about doing this right?
Okay. So first of all, when it comes to am I doing it right? First of all, what's your why? Okay. First of all, don't do it because like you're punishing yourself, or because, you know, I don't know. So many people get into these things for the wrong reasons. This is something I really want you to do. If you get into cold training, you're going to decide to love the cold. Okay? And that is, well, like, wait a minute, how am I supposed to do that? But you're going to decide to love it. And this is something that it all comes down to attitude and mindset. So if you're doing it right, you are trying to engage your attitude and your mindset. You're looking at this thing that naturally has we all are averse to cold. It's just a natural thing. It causes certain chemicals to fire in our brains that tell us, what's wrong? You know, there's something wrong. And so this is all, on one level, it's a mind thing. You're becoming stronger psychologically. Now, when it comes to the mechanics, I guess, of it, right? Am I doing it right? Well, it depends. It's always, and I hate that. I always hate that whenever people, well, you see, it depends. But it does, I'm sorry. The reason why it depends is this. Let's just suppose, for all my cold shower warriors, okay? So anybody who's doing the cold showers, am I doing it right? Okay. Are you going into that cold shower with a positive attitude, right? Yes, there's going to be some dread, okay? We all know that, okay? There's going to be a little bit of dread, and there's going to be a little bit of, oh man, I don't know if I really want to do this. And there's going to be a little voice in your head that says, you know, I'm kind of cold already. You know, maybe I'll just pass on this one. Okay, we all get that. You're still doing it right if you say, no, this is my decision. This is what I choose to do. I'm going to get into this cold exposure, and I'm going to get a pleasurable experience out of it because I'm going to decide to do that. You get in and you allow this water, this cold water, to be a stimulus. Now, let's talk about safety for just a second, or I guess the process of taking a cold exposure. The very first thing you're going to feel is the shock. Okay, there's going to be a cold shock. I've been doing this for years. And still, there is always that part of my brain that says, hey, you know what you're doing, right? You're getting into this cold, and it's really powerful. Yes, there's always going to be that cold shock. And what you want to try to do is stay calm during that cold shock. Yeah, I know it's going to be hard, okay? So there are ways we can stay calm. Breathing is one way that we do that, right? So my advice to everyone, regardless if you're going to take your very first cold shower, or if you're getting ready for ice bath, or you're going to roll in the snow, whatever you're going to do, is to slow your breathing down and to try to breathe like you're calm. So in through the nose. I always suggest in through the nose, out through the mouth. because you can, whenever you breathe out through the mouth, you can slow that breath down. And if you get a nice slow breath on your exhale, you're sending signals to your autonomic nervous system that, hey man, I'm okay and I'm in control. Because that's the biggest part of cold training. So, okay, am I doing it right? All right, I'm going to stay in the cold for a certain amount of time. I'm not going to stay until I'm miserable. I'm not going to stay until I'm sick. I'm not going to stay until I'm passing out. I'm not going to stay until I hate life. That's doing it wrong. And in fact, if you stay in the cold so long that you're hating it, you're going to give yourself a phobia of cold training. And it's very real. I've done this before. I've made about every mistake that I think is possible. Other than actually dying in the cold, I've made all of the mistakes. And I don't know how many times I've stayed in it too long. I'm pushing my limits, testing myself. And if you stay in too long, and we'll maybe talk about after drop here in just a little bit. But the idea is you want to stay in and you want to get out while you're still feeling good. You want to feel good when you get out. You don't want to wait until you're miserable. And if you do that, that in general is a successful cold exposure.
Nice.
Now, how cold, how long, all these other things we can talk about in just a little bit if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that.
But, you know, when it comes down to it, am I doing it right? Well, did you have the right mindset?
Yeah.
Check. Did you relax whenever that cold thing hit you? Check. Okay. Did you stay in long enough that it was a stressor, but not so long that you gave yourself some kind of a terrible problem? Okay, cool. Check. You got out. Right. Good. Check. All right. You didn't have any problems. Good. Then you did it right. And then everything else is kind of variations.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, that's so important, I think, for people to hear, because the tendency, and I can relate to this, is to get stuck on the myopic details of the mechanics. So I love that you broke that out for us. You talked to us a little bit about, you know, people are curious, like their question is, which is better, or what's the best, you know, way to do the showers versus immersion in a tub versus the chest freezer setup. I've never done a cold shower, but should I just go all in on the chest freezer setup right now? Like, give us a thought process for thinking about the different modalities and how to pick the best method for us.
Okay, well, let's talk about that for a minute, because we've had some really awesome submissions with chest freezers. So I'm just going to start with, I guess, that's the equivalent of like you've fallen in love and you're putting a ring on it.
Well done.
And so that's what you've done. If you bought a chest freezer and you're filling it up with water, first of all, and you're willing to explain this to your friends or family, they come over, they're like, oh, is this where you keep your, I don't know, your steaks or whatever? You're like, nah, dude, I get in that thing, man. Yeah, so whenever you've gotten to that level, then you've made a commitment. Now, the reason why a chest freezer is an awesome thing is only because it's cheaper. So you buy a chest freezer. I bought mine for like $300, and then you fill it up with water. And there's a good friend of mine, John Richter. I believe he's actually in the ebook that all of you guys who signed up for the Kion Challenge, take a look at that. He wrote, I mean, that guy just nerded out, and this guy's incredible. But I didn't have that. I was back in 2016 when I built mine. I went through a lot of just permutations, and it's ugly. It's a Frankenstein monster. But the thing is, the reason why it's so awesome is because I don't have to buy ice anymore.
Yeah.
So that is the only reason. If I had an ice machine, I would rather use an ice machine. I don't know. It's kind of up there. There's something special about buying a bunch of ice, putting it in an ice bath, having that experience. Now, the thing is, so that's if you're like, I'm going to be doing this so often that it's going to cost so much for me to buy ice. I better make this investment, find a place to put it, and maintain it.
I love the analogy of putting a ring on it, like that.
You got to put a ring on it, yeah.
And I also really like the idea that, okay, so the process of going out and buying the ice is a ritual. That's time. It's money expensive. It's time expensive. And
Yeah.
I like that frame of that being sort of like a special occasion way
Yeah.
of dosing that cold. Yes.
Oh yeah,
So,
it is. There's something really special about it. It's just that it gets so expensive that it's cost prohibitive after a while. For
and
me,
it's not practical for a daily practice for most people, right? I mean,
no.
yeah.
No. Now in the winter time, if you live in a place where it gets nice and cold in the winter time and you've got a stock tank, just leave that thing outside, cover it so that, debris doesn't get into it or whatever. But I've done, sometimes I'll actually have both going because I started off, I live in the Midwest, all right? We're cow people here, all right? We have livestock here. And so I happened upon a stock tank early on in my training. And so I started to use that. Now my stock tank is a 100-gallon stock tank. And just as a rule, for those of you who want to, I guess, nerd out a little bit on this, depending on the ambient temperature of the air and the temperature of the water, you're going to look at, for an ice bath, you're going to take a Jesse Coomer style ice bath, all right? You're looking at about 120 to 160 pounds of ice. That can get expensive if you're doing it on a regular basis. But basically, that's approximately what I'm looking for. Because I'm looking to get my ice bath usually I'm wanting to get it as cold as water can possibly get. My favorite area is like 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. So I usually try to buy quite a bit of ice. Now, when it comes to what is better, right? Well, both of them are really about the same thing. However, there is, for me, I guess one of the things I like about my stock tank is I can take it out to like nature and then take an ice bath outside and really have an awesome experience. My deep freeze is in my garage and it's cool and all. I can jam out to my tunes and whatnot, but that's pretty much it. Now, I don't want to take anything away from a cold shower either. There's been a lot of research on cold showers, and one of the things they actually showed is that even just a 30-second to 1 minute cold shower every single day they showed reductions in the amount of time that people took off from work due to sickness. Yeah. So, there are a lot of benefits you're going to get just from a cold shower as well. And believe me, especially for those of us who live in a colder climate, especially during the wintertime, those cold showers can get really cold.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I sense a concern from people that cold showers just aren't
okay.
thick enough.
Yeah.
They're just not cold enough.
Okay. So you don't see people doing Instagram shots with a shower, okay? And I will say this is something that I don't want to see, all right, with a cold challenge, is your ego. Okay, your ego, and believe me, we all have egos, all right? Everybody has an ego, and let's just admit it, I have an ego too. But the thing is, what happens is our ego gets into play. And so we want the awesome picture. We want to feel like, hey man, I did this awesome, negative 400 degree ice bath. We want to brag, right? But the thing is, when it comes down to it, the cold will really humble you if you really truly let it. And so just be humble and say, I'm doing this not to show off, not to, get likes on Instagram or whatever. I'm doing this because I know that I want to live a longer, healthier life. There's all kinds of benefits. And yes, there may come a level where, like for me, I take an ice bath every night. Okay, sure. But if all you ever do is take a cold shower, like my first year of cold training was only cold showers. I think also one thing to think about is, and I saw some people making comments on some of the other pictures that were up on our cold challenge, was the variations in temperature summer to winter. And that's one thing right now, my friends, if you are just starting with cold exposure, now is the perfect time to start, because your cold shower is the warmest it's going to be. So whatever, if you're jumping out of your skin like I was, well, okay, just know that, okay, cool. Maybe work your way up to like a 5-minute ice or a cold shower or whatever, and just say, well, cool, I'm just going to do this every day, and then I'll let Mother Nature take over because the water will get colder.
Yeah, we're in the preseason. We're in the cold preseason, and beyond the 5-day challenge, you know, committing to a practice if it serves you, there is no better time to start because that water will get colder. You will have developed the habit, which is like one of the most important skills of the whole thing. And then, like you said, you get to progressively challenge yourself as the water gets colder. So yeah, a lot of people were like, is it really worth it to start it now, or, you know, if the temperature isn't as cold as it could be? And think of it as the preseason. It's preseason. You're training, you're developing the skill of the habit, and that water will get colder. And the best thing you can do is start now. So yeah, thank you for making that point. It's the preseason for warm, not so cold shower temps. So. Yeah,
and it'll still feel cold, and you're still getting benefits, especially if you're just starting out. Yeah, you know, you're building a lot of willpower, and really, when it comes to cold training, I always say it's 90% mental, 10% biological, right? And so you're allowing your brain, and you're allowing for this. You're allowing yourself to start believing that you can do this,
right? And
that is an incredibly strong. That's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, and then it doesn't need to be perfect for you to do it. Like just do it. Like make it a habit and start doing it. And a lot of those benefits of becoming the person you want to be will start to build, even if you don't have, you know, the fully optimized temperature and all that stuff. Yeah, that's really important. And I think too, one thing that is often overlooked is the stimulus of like a 5 to 10 minute cold shower. Even if even if the temperature isn't like cold shock, you know, even if your skeleton isn't jumping out of your skin,
right?
You know, if you're used to 2 minutes, you know, 3 minutes is pushing a threshold you haven't challenged before. I remember the first time I always was kind of like, 5 minutes is like all I'm really willing to do, just because I was getting bored. And I remember committing to a 10-minute shower, and I got afterdrop. Like I was starting to get symptoms of afterdrop, even though the water wasn't super cold. So if all you've got is a shower and you know, you feel bad because your skeleton isn't jumping out of your skin on
right.
push that threshold of time, and you can get a very strong stimulus there as well.
Really, and it comes back. I'm glad you make that point. It comes back when it comes to cold training. There are two major things that we have to look at, right? Intensity. So that is the temperature that you're working with. How intense of a cold exposure is it? And then just like any other workout, okay, you've got intensity, so how heavy is the weight, right? Or duration, or, you know, when it comes to what's the word I'm looking for? Intensity, duration, we'll go with that. But basically, how long are you going to do that exercise, right? Okay, and we all know you can get super sore if you go work out and you do, you know, a ton of reps in the gym, right? So it's the same thing. You're still challenging your system. And what we found, what's really kind of cool, like for instance, a lot of athletes will tell me, hey, you know, I'm doing these ice baths and I'm doing them for 20 minutes. And you're talking about doing an ice bath for like 2 minutes or 5 minutes. What's the deal? Well, we're talking about a difference between intensity and duration, right? So the athletic ice bath is going to be right around maybe 60 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes a little bit lower than that, but normally around 60 degrees. Well, okay, so there's studies that show one of the most powerful things when it comes to our chemistry that happens when we're in an ice bath is our brain starts producing norepinephrine, or noradrenaline, right? Which is there's a lot of things that it does, but one of the biggest reasons why we do an ice bath for recovery is because it's an incredibly strong anti-inflammatory. Well, what we've shown, and there's all kinds of research that shows that you can do a really short burst, and then there's also a longer one, and both of them have benefits. So yeah, if you feel like, man, this cold shower, I feel like I could, you know, it's not as cold as maybe I feel like I'm handling it just fine. Okay, just nudge yourself a little bit further. Don't go crazy, right? After drop sucks, but you know, nudge yourself a little bit more, you know, maybe another 30 seconds, something like that, and just see how you do.
Nice. Well, now that we've kind of set the principles, let's go rapid fire through some. You cool with that?
Yeah.
All right. So on the topic of temperature,
yes.
How cold is cold enough?
Okay, so this again, always think about this. The little skinny dude trying to get huge in the gym, and the big buff guy who's probably on the roids, right? Okay, so how heavy is heavy enough?
Perfect.
And it really comes down to that. So whenever you go into the cold shower, you're going to be reconditioning yourself to what humans are naturally capable of doing. So if it's challenging, then it's cold enough. Just as on a simple note.
Nice. In fact, I think one of the threads I saw your name in on the Wim Hof forum was like, you know, if it feels cold, it's cold enough.
Yeah, and that's something where it's always going to feel cold, right? But you know, you're going to get in there and you're going to say, okay, this is a challenge, right? If you are challenging yourself and you're like, okay, wow, okay, this is challenging, then it's cold enough.
Yeah.
And so yes, there's intensity, there's duration, but when it comes to how cold should it be, if it is a challenge, if it's something where you have to use some willpower, you're probably right in there in that training zone.
Love it. Thank you. Awesome. So and kind of in line with that strength training logic, we'll how about this question? So is colder always better? Is colder always better?
Okay, so that's one of those where you're not supposed to say yes, right? Colder is not always better, right? Colder is not always better. Okay, the reason why it's not always better is because there are. I mean, it depends on where you are in your training. First of all, okay, so there's that, and we've covered that. We've talked about that. Let's move on to another reason why colder is not always better. I am very, very trained in the cold. It's something I do all the time, but there is a point when it's dangerous. So, for instance, when we had those Arctic polar blasts or whatever the past couple of years, we've had these in the Midwest, and it would get down to we're talking well below zero. We're talking -20s below zero. Well, here's the thing. Frostbite is real, and frostbite can really suck. I'm really fortunate I've never had frostbite, but I have had the little tinglies, right? The little things where you've had a little bit of burn, especially on my feet, because you know I'm always testing and experimenting. I took a barefoot walk during this Arctic blast, and I could feel my feet, but it was like it was freezing with every step. It froze on the concrete just a little bit. That was not a good idea, right? Bad me, right? That's not good. And the thing is, when it comes to frostbite, it's a real thing, and especially whenever it's really cold outside. So especially when it comes to dry outdoor exposures, you really do want to watch that. Really be careful, because even the greats, like even the great Wim Hof, he suffered frostbite, and it's something that is a very real threat. The other thing is, it's maybe not always better for you because you know, it depends, I guess, on your goals, and so always go according to where you are in your training.
Nice, thank you, awesome. Number one tip for making not so cold showers colder, or really more effective.
Yeah, so one of the things I used to love to do earlier on, I didn't really have, before I had a stock tank, before I had any opportunities to take ice baths, and I had a tub, but it was awful. It every part of my body was sticking out, and it really sucked. So I was like, well, how am I going to do this? So lengthening the time of the exposure, of course, is a great way to do it. But also, what I decided to do was I was going to work on extremity training while I'm doing the cold showers. And so So this is one of those things. If you read, I don't know, I think I put this in my ebook, how I timed myself.
Let me just interrupt you real quick. So Jesse, in his ebook, A Practical Guide to Cold Training, any question that we haven't answered here will be answered there, if not on his Midwestern Method YouTube channel. And you have a fantastic section where you really go into extremity training and how to do it. So I just want to plug that. For those of you who have asked questions about extremity training, are curious about how to integrate it into your cold showers, Jesse's ebook has got that nailed. So check that out.
So thank you, my friend. Yeah. But basically, this is something I think I put in the ebook. If you buy the ebook, you're about to get, and Mike, you're about to get the new second edition for free. It comes out, it comes out September 29th. All kinds of outdoor fun that I'm going to prescribe for you. So it's all kinds of goodness. But anyway, so when it comes to making that cold shower more of a challenge, what you do is you get a bucket, all right? And you fill the bucket so full of ice. And you can do this even if you don't have an ice machine. You go to your refrigerator, your family, during the summertime, your family will be like, okay, I was trying to have some lemonade. But don't worry. They love you enough to know that you're crazy and it's okay. You're the good kind of crazy. Always remember that. You're the good kind of crazy. So you get this ice, you get this bucket, you fill it full of ice, and you make it so that it's so full of ice that you have to put water in it, but just enough, just a little bit of water to put your hands in there, okay? So before you get into the cold shower, okay, you just put your hands in there and you put it in there for about between 1 to 3 minutes, okay? Now there's going to be some things that happen during this time, and one of them is going to be some pain, okay? Now one of the things, I'm sorry, I'm just letting you know, one of the things when it comes to this style of training, we're upping the ante with the challenge, and we're upping the ante with the amount of focus and surrender, right, that we're saying, I'm going to be really training my mind. Okay.
I'm going to be honest with you. Is that is harder. Extremity training is harder for me than the stock tank with 200 pounds. It is. So for those of you who are like, I can't, like, I'm not going to get anything out of this. All I have is cold showered. Like you're about to enter a new world.
When I was training, I trained under one of my favorite mentors named Casper Vandermeulen, and he had me and some of the other people. We did the pain stream, he called it, and basically it was just hands and feet in a mountain stream. That the only reason why it was liquid is because it was moving, and it was the kind where on the top it was frozen, so we had to kind of break through the ice with our hands and just walk around, just keep walking around in that. I mean, I'm just saying it is a challenge, and I also think this is why most people fear ice baths the most, because you put your hand in something cold, right? And you're like, man, that hurts. I would hate for my whole body to have to feel that way. Your body has it made, right? Your body really understands how to preserve the core. So you always remember the reason why the extremities lose circulation so fast, the reason why they hurt so fast is because they're closing off all those little capillaries to preserve the body's core temperature. Right? Your body, your body's like, hey, listen, I know you need those hands, to eat chicken wings because you shave your beard, right? And it's coming back too. And I mean, chicken wings is going to start being a thing of the past for me. But anyway, enough sad stories. The thing is, your body says, listen, if your core temperature is too low, then it won't matter, if you have hands or not. So that's why that happens. Well, okay, so what you do is you put your hands in that ice bucket and you put it in there for between 1 to 3 minutes. You're going to need to push past the pain threshold. And again, release, surrender, relax. Don't try to muscle it through. Don't try to grit your teeth. My mother, bless her heart, she always told me, think warm thoughts, Jesse. And no, that doesn't work. It's you just relax, you focus on. You can even focus on the feeling of cold if you want to. That can help too. Anyway, after
mantra, release. Would you say release, surrender, relax? Like that's not a bad.
That right there. If you just remember those 3 words, just repeat those 3 words, and that's going to get you through. Well, 1 to 3 minutes, and really it's that's not getting you through. You're getting you through. But the thing is, after 1 to 3 minutes, you pull it out. Then you've got this awesome bucket of ice still. What are you going to do with it? Well, I'll tell you what you're going to do with it. You're going to go to the shower, and you're going to do a 10-minute cold shower. Okay? For the first 5 minutes, you're going to put your right foot in that bucket. Okay? And then you pull your right foot out after 5 minutes, and then you kind of scoot it over, put your left foot in it. Okay? Now, I don't know if, Mike, do you know how I used to tell how long 5 minutes was?
No.
Okay, I didn't remember if I put that in my ebook or not. So one of my best advice for anybody who's not so sure about the cold, if it's hard for you to make it into a joyful experience, because it's really important to try to make it into a joyful experience. Cheesy music, okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm talking the Jovi. I'm talking Poison, all right? I'm talking Tupac. Okay, now some of you guys are like, wait a minute, that's not cheesy. It's okay, cool. But I found out that California Love, if you listen to one of the versions, like they had a million versions, it was 5 minutes exactly.
I can just picture you like dun, 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 just trying to make it through.
Well, here's how I knew I was almost ready to switch feet. You know, the guy with the vocalizer at the end, you know?
Yes.
I was like, okay, all right. It's almost time to switch feet whenever he was going like, anyway, the point is, make it fun. And it's not fun to look at your watch all the time. It's fun to listen to music. So figure out a certain series of maybe songs where you know, okay, about 5 minutes is going to pass when that song is over. And then switch to the other foot. And then after your 5 minutes on that foot is done, you're done with the experience. Now you're still trying to get the cold water on your body, and if it's not that cold of water, well, okay, maybe go submerge the head a little bit, okay? But the cool thing is you've challenged your extremities and you've challenged your willpower.
Yeah.
That's probably, out of all of the things you're going to get out of cold training, that's one of the most, I would say the most profound thing is the incredible ability. Suddenly you see yourself as a person who can make difficult decisions, and you have incredible willpower.
And the take home is for the people in showers, like that's available to you. And in a way that a lot of people who are, you know, fully optimized with their ice tubs are not really engaging in the same way. So Jesse's ebook covers that. And so if you're concerned that cold showers aren't enough, or you're not going to get enough of the benefits, or you question the validity of that, extremity training is an option available to you, and Jesse covers that and much more in his ebook.
I'm seeing a song suggestion here by Taylor Summers. Don't stop. It's Don't Stop Breathing. Maybe you can change this up. Breathing. Oh, I don't know. Have fun with it. That's the most important thing.
Nice. All right, rapid fire for another couple minutes, and then we're gonna wrap it up. How to shower well. A lot of people are confused on how to shower well. In 30 seconds, how do you shower well?
Okay, so you're going to want to try to get your core. So you really want to challenge your core and get all over your body. It's going to sort of seem like a little bit of a dance, so be careful, right? But here's the thing. You want to try to make it so that you're constantly moving. So you're kind of going like this. You're kind of going like this. Get the underarm areas. Really don't forget about any part of your body. So really try to get everywhere that you possibly can get as evenly as you can and as uniformly over time as you can.
Nice. Yeah, spread it out. Spread it around. Perfect. Yeah. Talk a little bit about hot, cold, contrasting, like what's it good for, basically?
Yeah.
When should you do it?
Hot and cold those are contrast showers. The best reason why to do them is that it opens and closes your capillaries. And it's basically it's like a cardiovascular workout for your all of this surface area in your capillaries. It's something that also can help with lymph circulation, and it feels good.
Feels good. Yeah. Nice. All Okay, accessorizing your cold training practice. So coupling cold exposure with breath work. I think obviously the Wim Hof Method has a protocol, and it's it's an effective thing to do. It can add a lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
How can we learn more about the best ways to do that?
Okay.
You cover that pretty good in your
my ebook. I do cover a little bit of it. When it comes to Wim Hof Method, it's just a fantastic breathwork session before you get in. And this is a debate that I've had with Dr. Otto Music, who does research on Wim Hof Method specifically. I don't necessarily feel personally that I feel like it's a great thing to do, Wim Hof Method or some kind of super ventilation, something like that. But I'll tell you what, whenever I do my cold exposures, I would say most of the time, 9 times out of 10, I just get right in. I don't do a lot of ceremony before I get in there. I turn on, my music, and then I just get right in. And then really the breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Or you can do, if you're a yogi and Ujjayi breath, that's a fantastic breathing technique for adapting whenever you're in a cold situation.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great point, because I think it's easy to want to add all these things in before to prepare yourself for the perfect thing, and next thing you know, it's just too much. Breath work is great. It can support you, but mostly pay attention to how you're breathing when.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wim Hof Method breath work. Obviously, I'm a huge fan, but just don't feel like that is the thing that's going to make you able to get into the cold. You're the thing. This is the thing that gets you into the cold. The breath work is great. It's wonderful for kind of chilling you out, getting you ready to do it, but it doesn't do the work for you. That's your job.
Nice. Thank you. That's awesome. Best time of day.
Best time of day, it depends on the person. I always do mine in the evenings, and it came down to the kiddo thing, right? I have more time in the evenings, so it started that way. However, for most people, the first thing in the morning, something early, is normally when most people prefer it, because it's going to wake you up. It's going to give you that norepinephrine. Whenever you do cold in the evening, for me, I love it. I feel like it helps relax me, but not everybody's the same. My best advice: just experiment, figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, the time that you can do it is the best time.
That's really, as long as you're doing it, you nailed it.
Nice. A lot of people who are strength training are concerned about the timing between their strength training sessions and their cold thermo practice. Can you give us some guidelines for how to think about that?
Yeah, I want dim gains as well, so I'm with you guys. So here's the thing. First of all, there's some people that are really so the concern comes down to when you do weight training or lifting or anything like that, you are causing the micro tears in your muscle, and there's some inflammation. The inflammation tells your body where to do the repair, and the repair makes your muscles bigger, stronger, better, right? So the fear is that if you have this incredible cold exposure, it's going to be a anti-inflammatory, and it's going to reduce your possibility for muscle gain. Now, here's 2 things I'll say about that. First of all, I would say that after doing this for as long as I've done it, I've never experienced anything that I would consider blunting. I've had really good success, and I've done it for 5 years or 5 years now, over 5 years. The other thing is, though, if you're concerned about that, as long as you're waiting, usually about 3 hours is what I always say, 3 hours. That's the best way to do it. Now, for me, a lot of times I'll work out first thing in the morning, and I'll do my ice bathing in the evening. So I don't even, it's not even a concern. But if you're worried about it, space out your ice bathing from your weight training. If all you're doing is cold showers, I wouldn't worry about it at all.
Nice. That's helpful. Yeah, cool. Let's close with just some thoughts on common roadblocks. You've been coaching people through this for a long time. So what are some things that might be in blind spots that you can help us identify and work through?
One of the most common roadblocks is that eventually you will reach a certain point where, like, it's difficult to say you're going to expand, grow, get longer, colder exposures. And you might start feeling bored, or you might feel like, man, I'm never going to be able to sit in an ice bath for 2 hours like the champion. You're going to start, for many people, we reach a level, and that's where biologically, physiologically, whatever, that's your limit. You will reach a limit. And so sometimes that is discouraging for people. So I'm here to tell you, ice bathing and cool exposure of any kind should not be something you're doing to show off or something like that. Yeah, it's really cool. And, okay, maybe show off a little bit. I mean, I have an Instagram too. But the point of it is to live a longer, healthier life. So really get back to that focus. Another thing is that sometimes we just get lazy. And that's the thing that I'm guilty of probably the most. And it's just like, well, I just don't feel like it. And if you're a cold trainer, you don't have to do cold training every single day. Okay, it's not like you have to always do it, but you do have to be somewhat consistent in it, or else you're backsliding, or it gets easy to be out of that habit. Yeah. So those are probably the two biggest roadblocks that I personally have had, and I've seen a lot of other people have.
Nice, thank you. What would you say people worry too much about? If there was one thing you could kind of chill people out on, what would it be?
The minutia. Okay, so when we get into the weeds and we really want to know all these tiny little details, and believe me, I like to nerd out on stuff, and this is one of my favorite things, and so I love knowing all the little details. Now, sadly enough, it's one of these weird things with cold exposure. There's an enormous amount of research that's been done, but it's all kind of different styles of cold training. It's all different kinds of times and ways of doing it, and it's really kind of frustrating because finding out the minutia is kind of hard to do. But at the same time, really, if you think about it, one of the main goals of cold training is learning the value of interoception, something I call the inner voice, okay? And that right there, if I could guide you to the minutia that you should be thinking about, the really difficult thing is learning to listen to yourself, learning to get to know how you're reacting and all these things. So I would really encourage you not to get so hung up on timing yourself and am I going to increase in time and what time of day, or all these little tiny things that at the end of the day, it doesn't really make a huge difference. What I would really recommend is really thinking about how am I growing from this practice, and really how am I learning to get to know myself as far as my limits and how I'm listening to what my body and mind are saying. That's going to help you in every other part of life too.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I think in my personal experience, friends, in the research I've done, people there's a tendency for us to want to make it really precious and to make it really perfect, and that all of these requirements just end up getting in the way of us showing up and being consistent and learning and growing. So the more we can zoom out and the simpler we can make it, the better, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, brother, thank you so much. So at this point, I just want people to know you are the dude that the experts go to with questions. And you've got some fantastic platforms where you've answered every question that anyone could ever think of asking. So I just want to mention that and where people can find you. So your website, midwesternmethod.com, is sort of your home base. But you are also on Instagram and YouTube at Midwestern Method. Is that correct?
That's right.
Nearly 200 videos on YouTube. And that's how I found you. Like every question I get, I know that I don't know how to answer. I know you've covered somewhere on your YouTube channel. So yeah, and as well as your ebook, which is just such a gift to the world. And it's the Practical Guide to Cold Training is sort of the definitive resource for cold training. You can pick that up at Jesse's website. You got the second edition coming out with some exciting new content. That sounds cool. And a new book, The Practical Guide to Breath Work, is also coming out. And that's the end of September. Both of those are coming out September 29th. Is that right?
That's what we're shooting for, yeah.
So like him on Instagram, subscribe to his YouTube channel, pick up his ebook,